I'm not gonna lie, I had a problem with Children of Blood and Bone when I read it last year, but the fast pace and the premise kept me intrigued well enough. I binged the entire book in a night. Children of Virtue and Vengeance, however, took me 2 weeks, so you can imagine just how hard it was for me to slog through this book. And so, my review, I'm going to be splitting into 3 segments: the good, the bad, and the so much worse. I will start with the good. Tomi Adeyemi's writing was so much more descriptive in this book. It helped me see Orisha even better. It contributed immensely to the world building. This is a fleshed out world which I actually enjoyed spending time in. I loved the fact that I could feel the air. I was present in Orisha. I was swimming, I was running, I was doing basically everything with the Yikas. I was as invested in this world as everybody who lived in it. So definitely A plus for the more descriptive writing. And our writing also improved with regards to the emotional bent of our stories. I was feeling the emotion that these characters were going through, and truly Zelia was in a very, very bad place in this book. She was suicidal, she was dealing with anger, with anguish, with despair. And even when certain events happened in this book that broke her, Tomi was able to convince me that Zelia was really in that depth. I was able to plunge down into those moments of despair with this character. So I would say that as far as the writing is concerned, Tomi Adeyemi's writing between Children of Blood and Bone and Children of Virtue and Vengeance grew by leaps and bounds. I totally and completely am in awe of just how marked a difference the writing is in this book. The third thing I appreciated about this book is the fact that we're able to fully flesh out the magic system, the way it worked. We had a vague idea in Children of Blood and Bone, but in Children of Virtue and Vengeance, we're able to understand exactly how the magic system worked. Actually attributed to the fact that in this book we got more of a wider range of magi's. We're able to see their abilities, we're able to see them train, we're able to see exactly how their powers worked and how it originates. So it was a building of the law and simultaneously helped me understand and even appreciate the magic system even more. And fourthly and finally, Tomi Adeyemi has learned to edit well. Like, this book is 400 pages, is more than 100 pages shorter than the first book, which I appreciated because I did think that the first book sometimes wandered aimlessly, but in this you could see that she had learned how to cut, she had learned how to ensure that a story was a tighter story told. So why is it that even though this book is shorter, even though this book is tighter as a story, why is it that I found it so much more boring, so much more tedious than Children of Blood and Bone? Let's go to the bad. Starting with one, I still feel a level of queerbaiting in this book. I'm not gonna lie, not a lot of people probably picked up this book with the expectation and hope that Zelia and Amari would get together, even though technically they have better chemistry, they have better history, the story works well with them as a couple better. You could actually see the progression of their relationship and their love compared to the insta love nonsense that we got with Zelia and Inan. But no, once again, we still have Amari with Zayn, even though every single time she's with Zelia's brother, she's kind of actually thinking about Zelia herself, to the point that Zayn was like, could you stop thinking about my sister when I have my tongue down your throat? And yes, legitimately, this is a line in the book, so you understand just how much Amari's obsession with Zelia was. And all I was thinking is that this is just queerbaiting, because obviously these two girls are in love with each other. This is nothing platonic, but we were not going to get that. All we got was a sapphic side character, and I'm still like, yeah, but that just felt like it was pandering to me, like, oh, you knew that people like the concept of Amari and Zelia together. We know that it works better, but here is some sapphic rep, so you stop bothering me. Like, that was how I saw it. But anyway, that might not have been intention. I understand that. The second bad, Inan is still alive. Oops, spoiler alert. If you actually were surprised about this development, I'm over here rolling my eyes and wondering that, because I kid you not, throughout this book, we're dealing with the fact that Zelia was angry and Amari was grieving the loss of her father and her brother. The father part, I do not understand, because all throughout Children of Blood and Bone, she did not give us this impression that Amari had so much love or respect or even liked her father. We didn't get that impression, but all of a sudden in this book, ooh, her father, and I'm over here reading it and I'm like, okay, I don't understand. Where is this sudden attention and love and whatever need for your father coming from. But then like, she's grieving the loss of her brother. Zelia is angry, and all I'm thinking is that what do you mean by Inan is dead? Inan isn't dead. He was stabbed in the stomach. It's a magi. All I was thinking, all legitimately, all I was thinking was that this boy is still alive. So when he showed up alive, I was like, duh, he's still here. Like, why am I not surprised? Of course, he's still alive. What is even less surprising is that once again, he's still being a dumbass. See, there's a problem with Inan as a character in the sense that he's someone that is very wishy-washy, and I think that Zelia perfectly captures the essence of who he is well in the statement that she tells Amari, which is the fact that he would always do the right thing when it's easy and convenient for him, but when it's not, he's going to stab you in the back. And of course, I do know that certain events in this book were pushed on him, so it wasn't like he was actually manipulating it, but he dilly-dallied so much. He was feeling sad, and then I'm going to kill them, and then I feel sad and I'm going to kill them, and once again we were stuck with this wishy-washy character that just made me want to pull out my hair. And the reason why it offended me so much in this book is that you would assume that maybe his character would have evolved or changed from book 1 to book 2, considering the fact that other characters kind of are going through a metamorphosis in this book, but Inan stayed the same. And to me, it seemed like it stayed the same in order to push this plot where it was going. So even though a lot of the story was meant to have been character driven, in the sense that characters changing was what brought about a lot of changes in this book, Inan's story stayed the same, which I think was just to further the plot, and I had a problem with that. The third thing I could not stand about this book is that there is yet another forced relationship that is placed on us in this book, and all I'm thinking is that why does Tomi Adeyemi like this? There's yet another insta love. Yes, if you thought that Inan and Zelia were over and that relationship was gone and buried and we're going to get something better, no, we did not, because once again there is yet another forced relationship. Zelia and Rowan, yes, you heard me right, the mercenary in book 1 that she had conversations with, but she met in the last couple of chapters, all of a sudden is the person that she can't stop thinking about. All of a sudden she has this connection with him. All of a sudden he loves her, and I'm rolling my eyes so hard because, see, I think the problem is that maybe Tomi Adeyemi's writing of romance is something I cannot connect with because I did not find it believable. I was very irritated when he showed up. All I was just thinking is that this is yet another first insta love bullshit, and I expected better. I was just so frustrated, and considering the way in which things played out, something tells me that book 3 we're going to have a love triangle, and I'm just like, we're going to have a love triangle between the boring ass wishy ass prince and the boring ass look at me, I'm a monster mercenary, even though technically the only monstrous thing he did that we confirmed, that Zelia confirmed, was that he burnt somebody who deserved it with cigarettes. And I'm like, seriously, that's your definition of a monster, Rowan? Yeah, ooh, monstrous. I do think that certain events that happened at the end of the book were something that he had set in motion, which, if that's the case, then yeah, definitely he does deserve the title of monster, but I will come to that later in the book. And then there is Nehanda's seemingly out of nowhere, out of left field hatred for the Magi, and I found this very, very strange because to me it seemed like after Tomi killed off Saran in book 1, she needed somebody else to take his place, and rather than do what she did with Inan, aka bring him back to seemingly life, even though I already knew he was not going to die, like duh. She needed someone to fill in Saran's space, and so she brought in Nehanda, who had even more of an illogical hatred for Magi than Saran did. Like, I could even understand Saran's hatred because when we found out the history and the family and what happened with the raid, you could see the source. It still was not very logical, but you could see the source for me. And I believe that villains should have their motivation make even more sense than the heroes because they are their own persons, and in their own head, they are the heroes of their story. And I could not understand or see the reason why Nehada hated Magi so much, other than to once again further the plot and once again have somebody in the monarchy working and trying to kill all Magi's in Orisha. Like, that was legitimately how I saw it. And then there's the ferocity of Amari suddenly wanting at all costs to be queen. That also came out of left field because even in Children of Blood and Bone, we never got the idea that Amari wanted to be queen. She just wanted to get away. She wanted to help the Magi. She wanted to help correct the atrocities that her family had committed. And the only time when we got any mention of her wanting to be queen was when she was fighting with her father, and she told him that I would make a better queen. And then she killed him, which I applauded. But then there's a difference between making a better queen and then all of a sudden being so driven by this thirst, this desire for power, that you will backstab, you will lie, you will manipulate, you will kill, you will do all the many atrocities that your father had done. I know that there's this belief that the throne corrupts, but we never got the understanding that Amari even wanted the throne in the first place, in the first book. So I just found it very sudden, all of a sudden, that she wanted the throne, that she was willing to manipulate and kill and do everything she can to get that throne. It just, once again, it seemed out of left field. Once again, I did not really understand the motivation, the reason why. It made no sense to me. Still speaking of Amari and this desire to be queen, there's the way in which she suddenly kept turning to Saran's memory or the idea of him for guidance in everything she's doing. She's hearing his voice in her head. She's hearing all these things. She's considering what her father would do. Like, I understand if this had been Inan, because the entire basis of his character in the first book was that he wanted to please their father. But Amari never did that in book one. So it also, yet again, seemed like it was coming out of left field. Suddenly, with her just always turning to our father's memory for guidance, always wanting him to help, always doing this, strike Amari, give me guidance, father, what will father do? And I'm over here thinking, I'm like, I don't understand. You ended the first book by telling your father that you were going to do better than him, and yet you keep turning to the memory of him for guidance with regards to what you will do, when it is that you actually did end the book stating that you were going to do better than him. It seemed confusing. It seemed like Tommy once again just wanted to drive Amari to this wall. It seemed like this entire thing just seemed like it was just serving for the plot, for the story. It was not logical with the characters that she had built, and character motivations are important to me, especially when you're telling a story like this, because this story is partly plot driven but also character driven. It's all about freedom for the Orisha. It's all about them recovering their powers, and that in itself is a very important character motivation. So when you're telling me a story like that and then you just suddenly make these characters become very illogical beings, you take me out of the story, and I was very confused. I was very baffled. I did not understand where the story was going. It was very, 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 very annoying. And then there is Zane. There is Zane, who once again is a character that did not get fleshed out. He was just there accompanying everybody. I had a problem with that. I legitimately I wished it was that Tommy had, I don't know, fleshed out his character. He's the only person amongst this group of people that doesn't have any power whatsoever. You would think that that is the basis of a character arc for this person who didn't have any power, but who wanted to help and who is surrounded by all these powerful magi's, but he was once again sidelined. I'm just over here wondering, I'm like, wishy-washy. Inan got a POV, but Zane got zilch. No POV, no character development, nothing. And I'm still semi-pained, somewhat pained about that. It's just, I'm just tired. I'm just so tired. So let us just go to the so much worse aspect of this review. Let's start with the very first. Nothing really happens. Like, in 400 pages, the characters get nowhere. They finish the story without necessarily having grown, except for one person. Zelie has grown, even though sometimes she still exhibits the same character traits. This book was just a case of just running endlessly in circles for the entire 400 pages. Like, legitimately, they were just chasing one another's tails until the end of this book. And it is so sad, because this is a book about war, and I think what made this book even more of a disappointment for me was the fact that I also read yet another book about war in 2019, and that is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang, which is also a sequel. And The Dragon Republic was my favorite book of 2019, and I think that did a disservice to Children of Virtue and Vengeance, because I read a book about war and I legitimately saw how war changes people and how some people stay the same, and how at the end of it, it served a greater purpose / plot for the story, for the entirety of the trilogy, and how the mythos was worked into the story as well to make it a complete, cohesive whole. I did not get that with Children of Blood and Bone. This was just aimless wandering. A lot of things just kept happening aimlessly. These characters got nowhere. This story got nowhere. And then boom, we got to the end. Like, say what you will about Children of Blood and Bone, because all I'm thinking when I was reading this book is that what exactly is Children of Virtue and Vengeance about? Because I might not have enjoyed Children of Blood and Bone so much, but I definitely enjoyed it way more than this book. And Children of Blood and Bone for me was a story about restoring power to the Magi's. That was the plot of the story. The characters were changing along the way, but the major plot of that story was a journey to restore magic to the lands. What is the plot of the story? And please don't say war or how power changes people, because that is actually more of a theme than the actual plot. So what is the actual plot? What exactly is the story about? What exactly is it meant to serve? How exactly did this entire story, how does it contribute to the overarching storyline? And the overarching storyline of this entire trilogy of the Legacy of Orisha is meant to be what? I would assume it's the freedom of the Magi. I would assume it's the restoration of the city of Orisha, the merging together, the marriage of Magi's and non-Magi's. That is what I would assume that the overarching story is meant to be for this book. So how on earth does Children of Virtue and Vengeance contribute to it, especially with the way the story ended? And speaking of the way the story ended, seriously, we're going to end this on slavery? We're going to end this book, I repeat, on slavery? This just means that the entire purpose of the story is flawed as it is. Like, this entire story, this just means that this entire story is flawed, right? Because unless you're going to tell me that Orisha is the people and not the land, because I repeat, I would have assumed that the overarching story of this entire series is about the restoration of Orisha, the merger of the Magi's and the non-Magi's living together in harmony and building a society where their differences are accepted and celebrated and where people can live in harmony. I would assume that that was the overarching story, or at least that was what I assumed the overarching story would be. And so, unless you're telling me that Orisha is the people and not the place, right? But if that is the case, then Zelie's realization in the later part of this book that our people deserve to be free on their land, because there was a part in this book where she was initially pushing for the Magi's, for all of them, the elders and all the Magi's, to just run away, for them to go somewhere far away, settle down, build roots, rebuild their city. And Amari, because that one was driven by the thirst of for the crown, which once again came out of left field, like I've already established earlier on in this review. Amari is so driven by that desire to have that power, she shoots that down, and then eventually later in the book, Zelie comes to that realization herself that her people deserve to be free on their land, that they will not be chased away, they will not run away. And that realization was climactic in this story, because that was the first time that Zelie finally pulled herself away from the depth of despair. That was when she realized that our people deserve to live full, happy, whole lives. That would mean that pathos, that character realization and development is useless, because they are not going to be on Orisha anymore. They've been sold into slavery. So, which once again leads me to, what was the point of this book? Someone tell me, what was the point of this book? What was it? And then, so you're trying to tell me that in book 3 alone, you're going to have the Magi's, of course, sold to slavery. They are going to be slave for however long period of time. They are going to be set free. They are going to have to once again come back to their land. They are going to have to fight Nehada. Things with Inan have to be resolved. The old love triangle nonsense that Zelia is going through will probably have to be solved. All of this, and of course the things with Amari, dealing with what it is that she's dealt with, her realizing, like Mama Agba said, that she's not her mistakes and that she can change things. All of this is going to happen in one book. Unless Legacy of Orisha is no longer a trilogy and has now become a quartet. Because I thought it was a trilogy. Is it a quartet? Is it a 4-book series? Is it a 5-book series? Because I thought it was a trilogy. Because if it is a trilogy, that's going to be one big, humongous book. If it's more than a trilogy, then I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I won't say high expectations because, like I said, I found Children of Blood and Bone enjoyable, even though I found a lot of flaws, but I did enjoy it. But I had higher expectations than what I got in this book. And to say I'm disappointed is an understatement. And that is it. That is my review of Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi. Let me know down in the comments down below if you agree with any of my points. Let me know if you disagree. If you loved the book, let me know the things that you loved about the books. If it is that you love the books but you actually do see reason with the points I raised, let me know down in the comments down below as well. If it is that you did not like the book, then let me know if I just made your day. If you like this video, please do not forget to give it a big thumbs up. Click on that like button, please. Check out my other videos. Subscribe if you want to, and don't forget to click on the notification bell so you can know every time I drop a new video, because sometimes I do change my upload schedule around. I make new videos every Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I'll see you soon. Until then, stay passionate, love books, love yourself. Bye.